Hi, this is Anil Bharti and we are here at KubeCon in Sandiego, and today we have with us again Priyanka Sharma. You are Director of Technical Evangelism at GitLab, but you're also a board member of CNCF.
That's right. Thank you for having me.
This is the last day of KubeCon.
Final stretch.
Kind of, yeah. What has been your observation so far? Because I think the focus a lot has been on multi-cloud.
Yes, I think multi-cloud has definitely been a topic of interest for the KubeCon community. GitLab actually hosted Multi-Cloud Con as a day zero co-located event, and it was house full. I actually hosted the show. And I think the big conversation there is, Kubernetes, as our CEO says, has been the great equalizer among the clouds. So Sid, our CEO, describes this multi-cloud maturity model, which is you start with, you don't have a cloud, you have everything, your own data center. Then you have one cloud, monocloud. Then you have maybe more than one, but you have cloud-dependent DevOps processes. And then as you go through the sophistication levels, you first have workflow portability, which means same workflows regardless of cloud. Then you have application portability, which means you can port full applications from one cloud to the other based on your need or demand. And then there are other stages such as disaster recovery portability and excuse me, a few others leading up to data portability. And so he shared that, and the audience was there because for them, at this point, everyone is on multiple cloud providers. It's more a question of how do we do this effectively and easily. And people were in the audience trying to learn from each other, from the speakers, from the panelists. How do we do this well?
So multi-cloud is nothing new. It has been there for a while. People run whatever workload makes sense on the particular cloud. So recently, what are the new concerns around multi-cloud, whereas people are actually moving their production workload, they are moving out of development and experimentation, which when they're hitting some problems or bottlenecks or hurdles. So what are those?
You're absolutely correct that multi-cloud is not a new thing. There was a stat at the conference that 84% of enterprises have a multi-cloud strategy, and on average, companies are using between 4 and 5 clouds. So that's a lot. At GitLab, what we have seen is majority of our customers are in the workflow portability stage, where they want to ideally use the same tooling that they have, regardless of which cloud they're deploying to. And many have actually achieved this with GitLab and some other tools in conjunction. So our customer Delta is using GitLab plus OpenShift to deploy to any cloud, and it doesn't affect the developers at all. Genworth, who also spoke at Multi-Cloud Con, have same story. They shared a really interesting point of view. They were like, multi-cloud isn't I feel like going multi-cloud. It's more often regulatory reasons that you have to use certain clouds. And the differences between the clouds actually run really deep. That's something that I think when you look from afar is it's not something you recognize, because it feels like it's fairly utility, where one cloud provider or another basically the same thing. But no, they have real differences and different regulatory compliances. So that means you will be ending up in a situation of complexity. Workflow portability is something that people are actively working to solve. But then something that came up in the conference was when you have so many clouds, how you need to be able to abstract away the management to one layer, as opposed to each cloud has its own. Bassam Tabara, who is the CEO of Upbound and creator of the Rook project, shared that there needs to be a universal control plane that every cloud is a first-class citizen of. And so is on-prem, by the way. Everything. There is no native. And that's the need of the hour. He announced a project called Crossplane, which achieves that. It's actually kind of cool because in GitLab 12.5, which comes out tomorrow, Crossplane is baked in. So customers can use GitLab plus Crossplane in the environment they're used to actually achieve application portability, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, you mentioned application portability or workload. Data is also a critical piece, because I think companies, what is precious to them is data, because applications and workloads you can move. But there are different, different cloud vendors also try to vendor lock them in.
Yes, it's a tension.
Yeah. So, what has been your observation in terms of data also?
Yes, so in the maturity model that Sid describes, data portability is actually the final frontier. Interestingly, at MultiCloudCon, we were actually able to demonstrate it. We had the Yugabyte project come and show how if somebody uses the Yugabyte database along with Crossplane and what was the third thing? Rook, you can actually move from one cloud to another without, and the data is portable because the way Yugabyte is built, and this Yugabyte is one example. I know there are a few other options out there. The way it is built, it like moves over to clouds without any problem, and so that's something that they demonstrated. Of course, to the best of my understanding, it's still like for most enterprises, it's like they're starting to think about it. They're not even close to having achieved it. I asked a question in the audience, how many of you are doing data portability right now? 0 hands went up. It's like, how many of you are actively working on it? And like a few more. How many people wish? Almost everyone. So I think we're in the very early stages of that, but that once that's doable, it's going to be really great because people can feel a lot more relaxed that their data is not locked in.
Awesome. Thank you, Priyanka, so much for coming here and talking to me. And I look forward to seeing you again next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Swapnil.